All right, so I welcome everyone here again to our engineering transfer and industry panel with our two lovely panelists, which I will have introduce themselves in just a moment. But I want to thank Professor Herworth for helping make this event possible, the AIMS program. We do have a couple events coming up. So, oh, that didn't work. I was trying to scroll down. So if you do want to come to any future of our events, make sure you are on our AIMS Canvas shell, that you're keeping an eye out for our email communications about that. But for today, I don't want to spend much time on that. I want to spend time on the event we're actually here for. So I will go ahead and let each panelist introduce themselves by sharing a little bit about their name, of course, anything they want to share about themselves, their current position, and we can start it with that. So Kirsten, would you like to go first?
Sure. So thank you so much, Glendale Community College, for having me here. I really do appreciate. And I wanted to say, my name is Kristen Malama. I'm a quality systems engineer at Northrop Grumman. And I'm also an alumni for Glendale Community College. And just to preempt a little bit, I was also in AIMS at California State University. That was my, I would say, giga support. It actually made me where I am. But I would say Glendale really shaped my life. I've been very grounded up to where I am here. And I remember very well when my brother came for my graduation at CSUN, I had to bring him where it all started. So it started at Glendale Community College. I was really grounded right there. So yes, I work for Northrop Grumman as a quality system engineer. And Northrop Grumman actually manufactures space deployable structures, which are also astro mesh reflectors. They also do extendable radar support and also mass subsystems. These are just operating systems where they program whatever they want to program on. And also the reflectors, what I would say is they deploy in space. They are characterized by their efficient lightweight and also the robust kinematic deployment. So you can imagine these hardwares are made here on Earth and they go and deploy in space. So they're very interesting. The reason why I like working for Northrop Grumman, it's because we protect our troops. One of our products is for communications and we protect our troops, and that really is very satisfying to me here in the United States. And what do I do as a quality systems engineer? I manage the QMS, which just processes and activities that are being done, that they are being done to requirements. And I also manage corrective actions. This is where when we have issues on the products that we're making, it's my responsibility to make sure that those issues are being done correctly and that we are following requirements and that we make sure we close them out so that our products are of quality. So that's my brief introduction.
Perfect, that was fantastic. Let's go over to Luis.
Hi, everyone. My name is Luis. Thanks for having me here today. I'm really excited to get to meet one of you all. So a little bit about myself. I grew up in Burbank, so right next door to Glendale. I'm a first generation college student, maybe like yourself. Went to Glendale Community College, just like Kirsten mentioned. I definitely feel like the experiences I had at Glendale firmly grounded me as well and set me up for success for what came after. I transferred from Glendale Community College to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo up in Central California, where I majored in computer engineering. I just graduated from there this June 2021, right in the midst of the pandemic. So I feel it just like you all. And then I worked at Apple this summer as an intern and began a master's in computer science in specializing in intelligent robotics at USC. And so that's where I'm at right now.
All right, fantastic. So our attendees here, we've got some very, very exciting professionals who started literally where you are right now at Glendale Community College. So that's pretty exciting to see. I'm going to jump ahead to our next question on transfer. But again, if y'all have questions, you can direct message me in the chat. But we'll go ahead to our next one, which is, how did you prepare for the transfer process? And do you wish you had done anything differently? And I didn't tell which one of you to go first. Sorry. So let's start with Luis this time.
Sure. So I think one very important resource that your counselors are probably using, and you may be familiar with now, is assist.org. It's a very important website that you can use. Effectively, this website will aggregate all of the requirements for various universities and effectively translate those requirements for your desired institution you want to transfer to the coursework that your current school offers. So for instance, when I was looking at various schools at assist.org, I looked at Cal Poly, I looked at some UCs, and that website would tell me which classes I needed to take at Glendale Community College in order to satisfy the requirements for these universities. And sometimes it also tells you what classes your school doesn't offer, which is a really important thing to know, because those classes you can then find another local school to satisfy them. So that's one aspect of, I think, preparing for the transfer process. I would also say, learning vicariously. So what you're doing right now, attending this event, meeting us, Kristen and I, talking is really important. So, vicariously means like learning through others' experiences. So that means talking to your fellow students, because all of you all are very ambitious, very, very energetic, very motivated students. You all are finding information on your own. So share that with each other, talk to each other, give each other the advice you found from others. Again, talk to other successful transfer students, not just Kristen and I. Maybe you have friends, maybe you have siblings, maybe you have family, talk to them. Talk to your professors, like Professor Herworth. He's seen generations of students come and go through this college, and he knows them. Maybe there's somebody he knows that is studying the thing that you like and connect you to them. And talk to your counselors, so that's really important. Yeah.
Fantastic. How about you, Kristen?
Wow. It's so interesting to see when he gives those points, they are quite similar. So yes, I prepared for the transfer classes. I had to know which classes I needed to transfer and those that are going to satisfy what I needed at the university. That's really, really important. And you have to also ensure that you're going to get credit for those, that you're not going, they're just not going to be tossed away. That's really, really important. That's what I would say that I wish I had really, really invested into knowing which one, because I lost about 2-3 classes because I just did them. I thought maybe, as long as that transfer will, I didn't understand if they will really help me get credited when I get to the university. So make sure you look at those, find out if you can go to that university and find out. It's really, really important. And the other thing is just to also understand what resources you might need when you go to that university. One of them is AIMS. Don't lose AIMS, especially if you're transferring to California State University, Northridge. That's where I went. Make sure you can be part of that. Oh my God. AIMS really, really did a lot of things for me. So make sure you are part of AIMS. So on a nutshell, yes, assist.org, it's your number one website where you can check all these to make sure that you are in good standing to be able to transfer. And I wouldn't emphasize more on networking and talking to people around you. Remember, you are going through the same thing with people around you, especially in your intake. So you have, it's very powerful that you communicate, you talk to these people, because you never know what they know that you might need. So it's very good to talk to those people around you and, just to talk to your professors, things like that. But other than that, it's just being ready to make sure you don't get disappointed when you get there. Yeah.
Awesome. I heard really strong themes in what y'all were saying about resourcefulness, knowing what resources are out there and using those resources, communication, like you just ended on, in terms of instructors, counselors, your peers, networking, so that you're also preparing yourself for industry, and also just proactivity, right? And both of you sound like very proactive individuals, and I'm sure that's a major portion of how you got where you are today. So thank you for those great, thoughtful responses. So this next question is a little general, so answer with as much or as little as you would like. But basically, the question is, please describe your transfer journey. It could include how long you spent at GCC before transferring, what the application process was like, how many schools you applied to, just that kind of journey. What was that like for you? And I think I'm just going in a reverse order. So we'll start with Kristen.
Yes, so I spent, I would say, almost 2 years at GCC. That was my primary college. I did take some few classes in Dallas, Texas, maybe for one semester, but my primary, I would say, was GCC. And yes, I stayed almost 2 years at the community college, and then I transferred to California State University. And what was the other question? I'm sorry.
It's whatever you'd like to share about your process of transferring. So, as much as little as you like, that, you went through and successfully transferred.
Yes, and so yes, after I applied to about maybe 4 or 5 colleges, and I made sure it's those fields that I wanted to go in. And for example, I was trying to apply for manufacturing systems engineering, and for my field, very few universities have those. Most of them, they say industrial engineering, and very few have manufacturing systems engineering. So one of the university that picked me was, I was picked at Dallas University, Dallas, Texas, to do mechanical engineering. I was picked at, I think there's another university called Persian Basin in Texas. And I was also picked at California State University, Northridge. I was very excited to find that they picked me because I really wanted manufacturing systems engineering, because it's a well-rounded field where you learn literally everything, and you have that foresight of seeing how things are managed. Not to sell my course, any other courses are also very interesting, but I was very excited. So that's how I got picked at California State University. And yeah, and I also made sure I've applied for FAFSA, and they also give scholarships depending how you are doing, things like that when you get to the university. But I also made sure I could source for any grants that may be given to me before I went to the university. So, and that was how I transferred, and also to make sure I understand what classes I was going to take in my first year. That's really very important. Pretty much that, yes.
Yeah, that's a great description. And I love that piece about the nuances of what it says on your degree and what specific major you're picking, and emphasis within the major. Great, Luis?
Yes.
Sure. So I spent 2 years, I guess 2.5 if you count the summer class I took at GCC, and that before I transferred. Before I get into how I transferred, where I got into, what schools I applied to, the year before I went to GCC, or actually more like the 1.5 years, I was working full time. I was actually working full time in retail, selling clothes. I also worked at restaurants. And at the same time, I was taking part-time courses at another community college, and they were non-credit engineering courses, because I knew that I wanted to be an engineer, but wasn't sure what kind of an engineer I wanted to be. So I took some non-credit courses in like robotics and like microcontrollers, and like general electronics, automobile electronics, and welding, like manufacturing, lots of cool stuff. Just trying to figure out, what am I good at? What do I like? And then I settled on the idea of wanting to become either an electrical or a computer engineer. And then I started GCC in earnest, having figured out what kind of an engineer I wanted to be. I knew my major, and I knew what classes I needed to take. And so basically those 2 years at GCC plus that semester were very much like on rails for me. Like at that point, once I figured out what I wanted to do, it was very much just like following the classes I needed to take. and it was a really good experience. And I learned a lot, and I even changed a lot of my goals in my head from that experience of being at GCC, because I joined student organizations like SHIP, hung out with a lot of other students in other clubs, talked to my professors a lot. I was very close with my professor Marcus Afshar, Professor Herworth. They were very supportive people who helped me with applying to other programs, like internships, that were very critical for me to move on to the next step. And so when I applied for schools, I applied to all the UCs, all the Cal States, and I didn't get into my main school, which was Berkeley, and that was really interesting, because I think everyone's gonna experience at some point in your life, you're gonna experience a bit of disappointment, and it's really important to understand that not getting what you want doesn't reflect that you're not worthy of those things, and you shouldn't base your worth based on this year's or this upcoming year's application season, because in many ways the admissions process for schools is quite unpredictable, and there's many different variables that kind of go into it, and so it's hard for you. You ultimately don't really know entirely why you didn't get in, and honestly, school is going to be one small fraction of your life, and so where you go to school is not necessarily going to be as deterministic as what you do at the time that you have in school. And so and the application process is quite rigorous. I'm sure you guys are in it right now. It's writing your statement of purpose, getting all your grades together, your transcripts, applying to all these schools, filling out whether you're applying to the UCs, the Cal States, or the Common Apps, writing all your essays. It's a lot. So it helps to start early. It helps to dedicate time little by little to really get these applications out of the way. And there's also resources available when you're applying to this many schools. These application fees are very expensive. So just be aware that there's different ways you can cover those costs or mitigate them. And so I think part of that was, you could apply to scholarships. The schools themselves offer ways for you to get a certain number of free applications. And so, that is how to summarize my transfer journey, at least.
Lots of really, really great points in there. And I appreciate you talking about that idea. As a career counselor, I appreciate you talking about experimentation and trying out different kinds of engineering to figure out which one was going to be the best fit for you. And I actually do want to come in with a question, a follow-up. So Luis, you talked about all the ones you tried out to figure out that electrical or computer, you narrowed it down to those two. Kirsten, you said there's a difference between industrial and manufacturing. You knew you wanted manufacturing. How did you decide on that? How did you narrow down which engineering specialty you wanted?
Wow, that's a very interesting question, because I remember some of my friends were asking me, because they took a long time for them to make up their decision what they wanted to do. They were like, how did you know you want to do this career? But you have to look at what interests you. I love being in a factory. I love being in a place where they are making things. And I thought manufacturing is particularly where they are really making things, and industrial is too general. But at the same time, I think these two courses, they are so similar up to now. I don't really, get the part why they put it as industrial and they put this as manufacturing, because we ended in the same boat. But the reason that took me to choose particularly that, I really loved the feeling of the machine noise, just making things like that. And that's the reason why I chose it, and I knew I really wanted to be there, and I was not wrong. And just to touch a little bit back on the transfer issue, I forgot one point I wanted to mention. One of the things I really made sure is to make sure I can finish my math courses as much as I can when I'm at Glendale Community College. I just thought that maybe life might be much easier pursuing math at Glendale Community College. And I pushed so hard, guys, to a point where I only remained with two courses. I think differential equations, and also I think matrices. but most of it, I made sure I could finish at Glendale Community College. I just wanted to make sure I can tell you guys, you can try to push whatever you want to push before you transfer. It's very advantageous for you, because when I went to the university, everybody was asking me, are you not joining in this? I'm like, I'm done. I already did it. So yeah, but anyway, yeah, so that's how I chose my manufacturing systems, because I was really sure I really wanted to be there. And it's good to be certain, because that shortens your time of making decisions. You want to know exactly which career you want to take right away. So it's very good. But if you don't know, it's also good, but make sure you can make that decision as quickly as possible.
All right, those are great answers. Thank you so much for adding that extra input as well. I think at 1 o'clock, we're going to switch over to Q&A from the group. So I'm going to jump ahead to after you transferred and kind of really focus on this second to last one, which is, what was your transition like to the university? For example, was it a challenging or smooth transition? Did you use any student services or supports to help you adjust? I know you've already talked a little bit about this, but I'd love to hear more detail. And we can start with Luis.
Sure. So I would say it was challenging in some ways and then smooth in others. I'll start with the hard stuff. So what was challenging going to Cal Poly SLO is a quarter system. So Glendale Community College has the 16-week semester system, and the quarter system is roughly 11 weeks. And so what happens is you're learning like to some degree the same amount of material, but you're having classes more often throughout the week. But that also means you're having more assignments throughout the week. Your deadlines are shorter, and you have less time to recover from setbacks, both academic and personal. And that's really big, because you have to learn once you transfer to really have the methods in place for yourself to recover from personal setbacks. I'm assuming by now you're already learning how to recover from academic setbacks, just a matter of like studying harder, being more consistent with your time, figuring out how to be a better student. But it's really important to know how to recover from personal setbacks, because those are oftentimes unpredictable, and they tend to affect your life one way or another. And so there was a challenge just kind of getting used to the core system. As well as, moving somewhere else. I was 180 miles away, uprooting your social and your personal life, and that kind of ties into, having the methods in place to deal with, that kind of challenges as a human being, like making new friends, establishing yourself again. And so it's important to have your support network that you have right now, and being able to rely on that once you transfer, whether that's friends, families, peers, mentors. And so just understand that, each school has resources available to help you transition to university life. And the transfer population is a really significant one now in California. So schools are aware that we have a very unique experience as students. And so it's okay to feel a little overwhelmed, but you don't have to tackle those problems by yourself. And the cool stuff is that it was really cool to go to a school and now be immersed with among other students who want to do the exact same thing I wanted to do within like computer engineering. I found a club in robotics. We had a lot of funding. We built some really cool robots, worked with professors who were working with robots. So that was really fun. That part was smooth. It's like, being in a community where suddenly everybody's really motivated and everyone's very much proactive about their careers and they have cool experiences.
Fantastic. I love that thorough answer in terms of starting with the stuff that was hard, but ending with it being worth it because of all those new and exciting experiences. What about you, Kristen?
Yes, going to a university, it's always scary. I'll tell you, I was so scared. I didn't know how it's going to be, what kind of life is going to be there. But guess what? One thing is Glendale Community College has a very diverse student force, and that gave me a very good Duracell. When I got to California State University, Northridge, I found there were different types of people there. It was very interesting. So that was good. So I was, of course, scared. How am I going to do? Will I have friends? Things like that. So the first thing when I got there, I was very privileged to enter into AIMS program. So EMS programs created that belonging, that sense of belonging where you are so close to the professors, you're so close to other students. And if you have any issues, especially maybe you have issues with any classes, they'll help you. They even provide tutors for you. If you have any questions, I mean, I was so comfortable. I said, wow, I was so worried that I don't know how my life is going to be here at the university, but it turned out to be very, very exciting. And I had to go into research, and we were in close contact with these professors. And up to the time I finished, they were my mentors. Even now, I've still kept that contact with them. And through EMS, it's a way of also networking. These people will be there forever in your life. So that really, really worked out for me. So I was scared, but when I got there, I was like, wow, I don't even know why I was scared, because I found myself really enjoying the university life. And I'll tell you the other thing that really helped me out is I did my engineering 101 when I went to California State University. And in that class, they taught us a lot of things, expectations of being an engineer, and also how to plan your life, because engineering, it's quite a taxing career. So you really want to utilize every time of your life. You don't have a time where you're just seated, unless you're resting or something like that, but you want to utilize every time because you've got so many things to do. So that class really set me for success, because we learned a lot of things, how to plan yourself. If you are working, how many hours can you work, and what can you do for the rest of the day? How can you meet other students? Because you can't just be going to class every day without talking to nobody. Then you go home. You want to network with other students because you learn a lot from them. So that's how my transfer, experience was.
Perfect. I sense both of your answers. Again, another theme of community, having that supportive community, building a new community, using programs, clubs, resources on campus to find a new sense of community after leaving GCC, and also keeping that GCC community. Like you said, you're still in contact with some of your university instructors, things like that. Okay, so it's exactly 1 o'clock. For the recording, I want to ask this one last career-related question to end that, and then we'll open it up to the group. So this last one for everyone here is, how did you use your time at the university to prepare for employment and/or grad school? For example, expanding your network, which you just talked about. So in addition to that, internship, research, things like that. Go ahead and lead the way, Kristen.
Yes. So once I was at college, I realized my main question that was bothering was, how do people get employed when they finish their school? So that bugged me. And I could see some people, they were not bothered by it. But I said, I have to do something, because I saw that most employers, they were employing if you've done something, and they will get you right away. But they can also get you if you haven't done anything. But the levels at which you start from differs with someone who has done some experience. So with the mentors that I had, I was really plugged in very well. So I did research. I worked in the lab. I helped professors prepare for the lab, chemistry lab, and also material engineering labs. So I worked in there. I also did research. So that really set me up for internship as soon as I just graduated. So that's what I would really, really recommend, that make sure you try to engage yourself, be self-driven, to make sure what can you do if you have time. You don't have to push it, but if you can, try to see even just volunteering in one of the with one of the teachers, whatever research they are doing. So that's what I would say.
Perfect. What about you, Luis?
I think what Kristen said is actually very much poignant. It's really important to get that initial work experience, the internship experience, because at graduation, or even when you're applying to grad school, that's taken in heavily into account to determine your potential, either for employment or to begin a graduate program if it's competitive. And like getting that first internship requires in some ways having experience, informal experience outside of the workforce. And so for me, that began at GCC. It began beforehand with the non-credit engineering courses I took. I actually had a lot of project experience. I built like an autonomous rover, built some other cool circuitry and electronic projects. I had all that stuff. And then I kind of leveraged that to get into another program at GCC. And it was, I think I was sponsored by, I forget who sponsored me, but it was a NASA Community College Aerospace Scholars Program. And so that's a really cool program, open only to community college students. And if you do well at the initial phase of that program, you get invited to go to a robotics competition at a NASA facility. And in my case, it was like a JPL. And so I was very successful at that competition. That ended up turning into a part-time internship at JPL at my last semester at GCC. And so once you get your first experience, right, like that first internship, it opens the door to many more because you've got your foot in the door to the next, either to stay at that place or to like find your next location. And so I just made it a point to like always work hard to find an internship for every summer. And the search for internships begin a year in advance. So if like you want to intern next summer, like it starts like right now, this is prime recruiting season. And so I guess one thing, so like you want to work on, again, project experience, using that to leverage opportunities to get internship experience. And then I think really important is establishing your professional presence now in the world, right? Because, how else are people going to know about your projects, your internships, unless you're like showcasing them? So that could be through your personal website. You could have one. Maybe you have a GitHub portfolio if you're a programmer like me. Maybe you have a LinkedIn. I think everyone should really look on having a LinkedIn. Look at people that are successful professionally, see how they style their LinkedIns, how they write them, how they style their resumes. And that's part of your brand, your personal brand as an engineer. And especially for some of the really big companies that rely on professional recruiters to find talent, having that presence and establishing it early and kind of building up your niche, like your brand, is really valuable. Because, even when I was applying to USC, they asked me for my LinkedIn. And I was really happy to provide it because I had had it for basically 3 years then. And there's been a lot of professional opportunities that I've had coming out of LinkedIn as a result of it. And again, because of the personal projects and the internships. And the nice thing, as engineering students, as STEM students, is that the internships you get will compensate you very well. And for my case, it helped me pay for my undergraduate. And if you're supporting yourself, like having to pay your own rent, all that, it goes a long way to be able to take care of yourself while in school.
That is great advice from both of you. And I also want to remind everybody that there are supports along the way. We have LinkedIn workshops multiple times a semester for our career services team. If you don't know when theirs are, you can always email me and I can get you the flyer. And just like he said, you can also look at people you admire in the field and model it based off of theirs. So great answers. Another myth, I think, is like it's not too early. So I'm glad you shared that you started at GCC with that internship and experience of project work. It's never too early to get involved, to be thinking about career. So perfect. I will go ahead and stop the recording.